The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they've come a long, long way since they won that Super Bowl, and the glory days just seem to be over. It seems like Tom Brady is moving on. He seems set to do so. He's a free agent. The team, they had really bad luck with O-line injuries this year, and they're a team who've kind of pushed things a little down the road. Do you think now is the time to tear it down and recoup some picks so they can rebuild properly? Or do you think they've got enough that if they went out and got another veteran quarterback, that they could just make another run into the playoffs next year?
I think look, this is what happens when you build around a 3-year window that you got to pay the piper at some point. And yeah, it would be lovely if the Bucs were able to go out and sign another veteran free agent, bring in a Jimmy G or a Derek Carr, someone like that. But the Bucs currently 45 million over the salary cap. Tom Brady is going to count $35 million against the cap for the Bucs next year, and that's without him being even on the roster. I think that this team is primed for a complete teardown. I think you're going to see a lot of these veterans potentially moved out the door. And look, Tom Brady, I think he's back in the NFL next year. I think in terms of dynasty, you can probably go and buy him on the cheap in half your rosters. Look, he's never going to be incredible, but he's still giving you, 14 top 24 weeks last season, but only 4 top 12. He is just now a plug and play, unsexy QB2.
Okay, so if we're moving Tom Brady out of there and they're going to have to figure out what to do at quarterback, then the question definitely comes down to kind of which players still have value and which players are good going into next year. Chris Godwin, he looked great this year once he was fully recovered from his injury. And he's probably got the easier kind of role if and from quarterback comes in. Plenty of bad quarterbacks can pepper a slot receiver. Mike Evans, though, even him and Brady couldn't seem to get it working at times this year. How do you feel about him going into 2023?
I'm seriously, I don't want any part of Mike Evans. I think that look, he had that incredible final week. He had that incredible final week that won many people titles. He won, the guy in Scott Fishbowl rostered him. There was all sorts of guys that had him for those big best ball tournaments wins. But 35% of his fantasy points came in 2 games last season. That's mind blowing. He averaged 15 points a game and finished as the wide receiver 16. However, if you look at his other 13 games, removing those 2, he averaged 11.2 points per game. That would be the wide receiver 40 on the season. Now, yes, I get if you remove the 2 highest games from you can do this for anyone. But that just shows you he killed you last year outside of 2 games. And with a new quarterback that's not going to be Tom Brady, I don't think I can trust Mike Evans, certainly at the cost that he's going at.
Okay, so moving on to the running back position. I was quite high on Rachaad White coming into the season. I thought he had that kind of burst that really he could take the job from Leonard Fournette. But even with Lenny playing through a Liz Frank injury, White's never really done that, and he's never really been fantastic. Lenny, he was quietly running back 12 on the season in points per game, quietly had the 3rd most receptions. And he's had 142 in the last 2 years. Do you think his value completely plummets if Brady's out of there?
I think that Fournette's value is reliant on Brady, and I think that Fournette is going to be gone at the end of the season from the Bucs along with Brady. I don't see any world in which Leonard Fournette holds any value other than in a Tom Brady offense. 37.3% of his scoring came on the ground. Like almost 2/3 of Leonard Fournette's value as a fancy asset came from those check down passes from Tom Brady. There's no other offense that he's going to be able to rely on that. He was terrible on the ground as a running back. And I just don't think that wherever he goes in free agency, or if there's another quarterback that's going to come in after Tom Brady, is going to be able to get that production. So for me, I think Leonard Fournette is a get whatever you can or don't draft at all. Rachaad White, I really like. I really like the talent. I really like the way he's going to be used in the offense. But do we really want him at his current cost? He's being hyped up because everybody's already seeing the writing on the wall and Leonard Fournette being gone. But do you want a lead back on an offense that is probably going to be pretty terrible next year? If we're talking that Tom Brady's gone, we don't know who the quarterback's going to be, Leonard Fournette's gone, it feels like this team's starting to fall apart. There's injuries on the offensive line. Yes, Rachaad White is going to be probably the lead back in Tampa Bay, but I feel like his value and the hype is going to get to a point where people are going to overhype him, and I'm not sure he's ever going to be a 70-80% opportunity share guy. I think he's going to need a 1B to his 1A potentially in any sort of offense.
So he seems like the kind of player that, particularly for dynasty purposes, if Leonard Fournette gets moved on at any point, he'd be ripe for selling high at that point.
100%. He's a screaming sell high in whether it's February, March when Leonard Fournette gets released, or the Tom Brady news breaks. I think Rachaad White's value is going to massively climb as soon as that happens.